What is spirituality and why your soul has been trying to get your attention? A young woman named Eddie Hilsum was living in Amsterdam under Nazi occupation. She had every reason to despair. Everything around her was collapsing. And yet, she wrote in her diary something that stopped me. She wrote, "There is a very deep well inside me, and in it dwells God. Sometimes I'm there too." Now, she wasn't writing about religion. She was writing about something she had found inside of herself, a place of stillness, of meaning, of something that felt larger than her circumstances. That nothing happening outside of her could touch her. Eddie Hilsum died in Auschwitz in 1943. But what she wrote about that inner well, that deep, quiet, indestructible place inside a human being, has stayed alive in the world ever since. Because most of us have felt it. Maybe not in those words and maybe not even consciously, but there are moments, quiet ones, unexpected ones, where you feel something underneath the noise of daily life. Something that feels like more, something that feels like home. This is what this video is about. By the end of it, I hope you will understand a little bit about what spirituality is. Now, it's separate from religion, separate from dopamine, and separate from anything anyone ever told you how it should be. And why is your soul trying to get your attention for longer than you realize? So stay with me. Let me start by clearing something up. Because for a lot of people, the word spirituality carries baggage. Maybe it brings up religion and experiences with religion that felt more like obligation than liberation. Maybe it brings up images of incense and crystals and things that felt removed from real life. Maybe it just feels vague, like something other people have accessed, and you're not quite understanding it. I want to offer you a completely different definition. Spirituality is not a belief system. It is not a set of rules. It is not something you do on Sunday mornings or at a retreat or when life gets hard enough that you reach out for something beyond yourself. Spirituality, and its most essential, is spirituality is the experience of being connected to something larger than the individual self, to meaning, to truth, to the deeper current of life that runs underneath the surface noise. It is the felt sense, not the intellectual concept, that you are more than your thoughts, your roles, your history, and your wounds. That there is something in you called the soul. Now, call it essence, call it your higher self, call it whatever resonates, but that exists beyond all of that. This something has wisdom. It has direction, has been trying to speak to you. If you've ever had a moment of complete stillness where something felt suddenly clear, that was it. If you've ever been in nature and felt something open in your chest, that was it. If you've ever known something was true before you had any logical reason to believe it, that was it. Spirituality is not separate from your ordinary life. This is the depth of understanding it. Here is the question that sits at the heart of all genuine spiritual exploration. Who are you, really? Not your name, not your job, not your relationship, or the history, or your wounds, or your achievements. What is the one underneath all of that? And most of us have never seriously asked this question. We've been too busy being what the world needed us to be, performing the role. meeting the expectations, being the version of ourselves that felt safe or acceptable or lovable. And in all of that performance, the deeper self got quiet. Not gone, never gone, just buried underneath the adaptations, underneath the programming, underneath the years of being told explicitly or implicitly who you were supposed to be. The spiritual journey at its core is the journey of going underneath the constructed self, the self that was built for survival, the self that learned to be small, or to be needed, or to be useful, or to be strong because that's what seems to be required. And finding underneath all of that something that was never wounded, something that was never diminished, and something that has been quiet and patient, consistently you. The mystics call it the soul. The psychologists call it the authentic self. The spiritual teachers call it your higher self. I call it the part of you that knows, because it does. It knows what is true for you, even when your mind argues otherwise. It knows what you actually need, even when you've been ignoring it for years. It knows who you are, even when you've forgotten. And the spiritual journey is simple. Learning to listen to it again. I want to talk about the heart for a moment, not the physical organ, though what science is now discovering about the heart is extraordinary. The Heart Math Institute has been researching the heart for decades, and what they found is remarkable. The heart has its own nervous system, its own intelligence. It actually sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And when a person is in a state of genuine heart coherence, when the heart is open, not armored, not contracted, it affects every system in the body. Clarity improves, intuition strengthens, the nervous system settles. The ancient traditions knew this long before the science confirmed it. The heart has always been understood across cultures, across centuries, as a seat of wisdom, the place where the human and the divine meet. Not the sentimental version of the heart, not the heart of getting greeting cards, the actual heart as a center of intelligence, a perception of knowing that goes beyond the rational mind. When I work with people through the love intelligence method, the heart is always where we begin. Because the heart knows things that the mind has been trained to dismiss. It knows when something is wrong, even before the evidence arrives. It knows when it's safe, even when the logic says otherwise. It knows what it loves, what it longs for, what it came here to do. And most of all, through years of protecting ourselves and managing our emotions, performing for the world, well, we've learned to override it. The spiritual journey is largely learning to trust it again. Let's talk about the soul. And I want to be honest about this. I'm not going to tell you what the soul is in any definitive religious or psychological sense, because I don't think anybody knows for certain. But I will tell you what I've come to understand through 5 years of sitting with people in their deepest places and through my own lived experience as a channel and an intuitive guide. The soul is the place of you that carries your deepest truth. And it is not interested in your performance. It is not interested in your achievements. It does not care about what other people think of you. It cares about one thing: whether you are living in alignment with what you actually are. And when you're not, it speaks. Sometimes quietly, in that sense of unease that won't go away. In the dreams that feel significant, but you've dismissed them in the morning. In the moments of unexpected grief that arises without obvious cause. Sometimes louder in the body that breaks down. In the relationships that finally can't be sustained. In the crisis that forces everything to stop, the soul has a way of getting your attention, one way or another. And here's what I've come to believe and why I believe. And I say this from my deepest personal experience, from witnessing it in people and myself, that each of us come here with something to learn and something to offer. These are usually connected. The thing you came to learn is usually the thing you most need to teach. The wound you came to heal is usually the wound you were most equipped to help others heal. The experience that felt like the worst thing that happened to you is often the thing that made you most preciously, most uniquely, and most powerfully yourself. This is the soul's intelligence. It wastes nothing. Here is a reframe that has changed the lives of the people I've worked with. What if your life, all of it, including the parts that hurt the most, is the map? It's not a punishment, it's not random, it's not bad luck, it's not proof that the universe is indifferent to your suffering, but it's a carefully designed set of experiences, each one offering exactly the lesson your soul came here to learn. Now, I know that sounds abstract, so let me make it concrete. A woman who grew up feeling invisible and who spent decades searching to be seen is learning the most important lesson available to a human being, that the seen has to come from within, that no amount of external validation will ever fill that internal void. And when she learns that, like really learns it, in her body, in her bones, she becomes somebody who can offer genuine, deep, soul level witnessing to others because she knows what it's cost not to have it. The person who experiences profound loss and walked through the grief rather than around it develops a capacity for compassion and presence that people who haven't suffered in that same way simply don't have. Every lesson in your lesson plan has a gift inside of it. Not always an obvious one, and not always the one that arrives quickly, but it is there. And the spiritual practice, if I could call it that, is learning to ask of every different and difficult experience, not why this is happening to me, but what is this teaching me? That shift from victim of your life to a student changes everything. Now, I want to make this kind of practical because spirituality that stays in the realm of beautiful concepts don't actually change anything. Real spirituality grows, and it happens in ordinary moments in an ordinary life. And here are 5 ways to deepen your connection to your own spiritual self. And you can start today. Now, the first one, create moments of genuine stillness, not meditation, not performance, not checking a box, just genuine stillness. Even 5 minutes where you're not consuming, not producing, not managing, just being. And notice what arises in that stillness. It's information, because your soul speaks it quietly. It can't be heard over the noise. 2, pay attention to what moves you. Beauty, music, nature, art, a story that makes you catch your breath. These are not frivolous reactions. This is your soul recognizing something true. And notice what constantly moves you. What is it pointing you towards? 3, take your inner knowing seriously. That quiet sense about something, the feeling of wrongness before the evidence arrives, that pull towards something you can't rationalize or explain. Start treating these as data, not as weakness or irrationalities. Your intuition is your soul calling in the language of feeling. Number 4, ask bigger questions, not anxiously, but with genuine curiosity. What am I here for? What am I learning right now? What is this experience trying to show me? These questions don't always produce immediate answers, but the asking itself begins to, well, orientate you towards meaning. Now, number 5, connect with something larger than yourself. Nature, service, art, community, prayer. The spiritual dimensions open when we step outside of our small self, the ego, the wounds, the daily concerns, and touches something that reminds us we are part of something much larger. That experience, however brief, changes your relationships with everything. Now, I want to share something personal. For most of my life, I experienced spirituality intellectually. I read the books, I meditated, I went to the workshops, and something was always slightly missing. Now, the shift happened not when I learned more, but when I stopped. And everything in my life fell apart at once. The relationship, the stability, the sense of direction. And I had no choice but to get very, very quiet. And in that quiet, something I'd been too busy to hear for decades finally got through. A knowing, a clarity, a sense this is what you're here for. I discovered I could channel, that I could feel the soul level truth of what was happening for another person beneath the story, beneath the wounds, and beneath everything they were presenting to the world. That wasn't something I learned, it was something I uncovered. When I finally got still enough to hear it, your gifts work the same way. They are not somewhere out there waiting to be found. They are already in you, waiting to be uncovered, waiting for you to get quiet enough to hear them. Now, Eddie Hilsum, sitting in the darkness of one of the history's most worst moments, found a well inside of her so deep that nothing outside could reach it. I believe you have that well too. I believe it has always been there. And I believe whether you feel it right now or not, that your soul has been trying to get your attention through the unease, through the longing, through the moments of unexpected beauty that catch you off guard. Through this video, perhaps right now. The spiritual journey is not about becoming someone different. It's about becoming more completely who you really are. At the deepest level, at the soul level, this is the work. And it is the most important work there is. Now, we are building a beautiful, intentional circle here. And if your soul feels at home, hit subscribe so we can keep finding our way back to each other. Leave a comment. I want to know, what does spirituality mean to you? Have you felt that deep well inside of yourself? Let's talk about it openly. And share this video with somebody who is searching for something they can't quite name. And when you're ready to go deeper, to actually do the work through the love intelligence method, reach out. Let's have a heart to heart, because you haven't missed your story. It's just about to begin. Love is the way back to self. And don't forget, love is your magic.